and deeper into the presence of God, and the Bible indicates that you will find that. Is that all right? Now, the first thing I want to tell you, welcome everybody that's logging on right now. We're in Lubbock, Texas. I don't know where you are because we can't see you, but you can see us. Nobody's welcome here today, all right? We always get up and welcome everybody here. If it weren't for Jesus Christ, none of us would be welcome in the presence of God. So as we enter, let's be sure and be thankful for the one and to the one who has made us qualified by his own blood, which we're going to celebrate today. And we can go into God's presence and experience everything that we need.
Unfailing, undefeated, unchanging, all in all, victorious, it's the love of Jesus.
Sing it.
Undenied, unfailing, undefeated, unchanging, all in all, victorious, it's the love of Jesus. For you took the cross, all hope, power could stand in the way of your love, your love, higher than the heavens, stronger than 1,000 seas. Your love, constant through the seasons, closer than the air.
His love today.
Unrestrained, unrivaled, unbridled, all in all.
Think about this.
Invincible, God, your love can never fail. For you took the cross when all hope had been lost, and no power could stand in the way of your love, higher than the heavens, stronger than 1,000 seas. Your love, constant through the seasons, closer than the air I breathe.
Oh, yeah.
It's unrestrained, unrivaled, unashamed, unbridled, all in all, invincible, God, your love can never fail. For you took the cross when all hope had been lost, and no power can stand in the way.
Sing it.
Of your love, yeah, your love, higher than the heavens, stronger than 1,000 seas. Your love, constant through the seasons, closer than the air I breathe.
Oh, we say,
How great, how strong, how is our God. I stand in awe of the never failing love of Jesus. How great, how strong, how awesome is our God. I stand in awe of the never failing love of Jesus. How great, how strong, how awesome is our God. I stand in awe of the never failing love of Jesus. How great, how great, how strong, how awesome is our God. I stand in awe of the never failing love of Jesus. Your love, higher than the heavens, stronger than 1,000 seas. Your love, yeah, your love, constant through the seasons, closer than the air I breathe. Your love, higher than the heavens, stronger than 1,000 seas. Your love, constant through the seasons, closer than the air I breathe.
Y'all believe that? There's nothing like the love of God. And the cool thing is, it doesn't matter what we're going through, doesn't matter the circumstances, situations, crazy people. You may have a bunch of Karens in your life. It don't matter. God's love is greater than Karen, right? It's just, if your name is Karen here, it's just a joke. But think about letting His love increase past all of the burdens and all of the troubles and setbacks that you're going through. We got families who have lost this week. We've lost some real major players in the kingdom of God, some prayer warriors. We're praying for all the families that are sad today because of this crazy virus. I'm ready to see that virus like out of here, right? Tommy Walden, every day it's a new experience. But we prayed last Sunday. We just want day by day some step of increase, and the challenges of having to have too much oxygen. But every day this week had a little setback. I think Friday. Every day the oxygen level was increasing, and that's a good thing. But it's just staying at it. It's just being faithful and being okay with one day at a time. And then others didn't fare so well, and they passed. And so now the family's just got to go one day at a time. But I'm going to tell you, when we all get to heaven, we're going to look back at this life and we're going to say, man, that was short compared to eternity. See, that's why Paul said, if I live, it's by Christ. But he said, if I die, it's actually a gain, because then this battle is over forever. There's no more struggle. So let's not get too tilted to the flesh. Let's keep our minds in the spirit. Think about this. There is a name that I love. There is a name that is higher. There is a name I can call, and darkness flees.
is a name that is strong. There is a name that is greater. There is a name that can set the captive free. Speak his name now. Say, Jesus, my heart sings worthy. Jesus, my soul cries holy. Jesus, no other name but Jesus, my King forever. Oh, there is a name that brings peace. There is a name that brings healing. There is a name that can calm the raging sea. We declare he is the light of the world, and he is the hope for the nations, and he is the one, and he lives, oh, he lives in me. Sing his name, Jesus. My heart sings worthy. Jesus, my soul cries holy. Jesus, no other name but Jesus, my King forever. You know, when you go to some place or someone's helped you through a situation, you don't want to mess with that relationship, you know. You want to protect that. If you're going to get access to a certain, you know, place where normally you're not able to go, the person that got you in there, well, that's the last person you want to offend, or at least till after you go to the event, right? Because the name of the person is real important. And sometimes you can go to a door of a backstage area, or, you know, non-accessible to the general crowd, and you can just say, I'm on so-and-so's list. And if they look it up and they find your name on that person's list, then you can go in where others have not been able to go. That's how we need to think about the name of Christ. We need to think about the name of Christ as that only name that can get us all access to the vital things that we need, so our spirit can lead our flesh and we can make our eternal destiny where it needs to be. It's all in his name. And you don't want to offend that name. That's why it's in worship that we renew ourselves to him, because he's got the name that can give us access to all the things that are vital to our sanity and our joy in life. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So in worship, you're just renewing yourself to his name. And then after this service, then you don't want to do anything that would offend it, because you're going to need access again, right? My son was dealing with a businessman in this community that has access to really good things and passes and some complimentary things, and he had a little plan. Well, that guy forgot about something pertaining to us and business, and someone came and said, hey, so-and-so didn't take care of his tab. And I was like, oh, that's no big deal. I know him. You know, we'll get that taken care of. And I said, in fact, I think I got his number. Well, I looked up, I didn't have it. Well, Dylan's sitting across the table, and he says, I've got it. And I said, all right. And I'd seen him over there talking to this older guy. And I said, well, just text him and say that he forgot to take care of his business. And Dylan kind of looked at me and he was like, I don't really want to do that, because he just gave me some comp things for the club level at the game Saturday. He just hooked me up, and I don't want to call him and you know, say, hey, you didn't take care of something. And I've been thinking about that. You know, there's times when the devil says, hey, God hadn't healed you. You've been tithing, and where do you see the increase? Like, we need a Dylan face when the devil comes like that and say, hey, I don't want to offend that name. I'm not going to get into this with you. I'm not going to discuss who he is and how great he is with you, because you're a liar. You're just going to give me false feedback. So I'm just going to stay out of this. Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? So I put somebody else on it. Kept him ready for Saturday. You know, that's important. Is that name? You got to be careful. Think about it. There's a name that brings peace. There is a name that brings peace. There is a name that brings healing. There is a name that can calm the raging nations. And he is the one, and he lives, oh, he lives in me. So we say, Jesus, my heart sings worthy. Jesus, my soul cries holy. Jesus, no other name but Jesus, my King forever. Take everything, all of me, every breath, let it be for you. Let it be for you. Be lifted high, glorified, every song, let it rise to you. Let it rise to you. Take everything, all of me, every breath, let it be for you. Let it be for you. Be lifted high, glorified, every song, let it rise to you. Let it rise to you. Sing it out now. Take everything, all of me, every breath, let it be for you. Let it be for you. Be lifted high, glorified, every song, let it rise to you. Let it rise to you. Take everything, all of me, every breath, let it be for you. Let it be for you. Be lifted high, glorified, every song, let it rise to you. Let it rise to you. Say, Jesus, my heart sings worthy. Jesus, my soul cries holy. Jesus, no other name but Jesus, my King forever. For there is a name I can call, and darkness flees. Yeah, give him a round of applause. You can be seated. Thank you so much for being here. We're in some interesting times, and we need to pray for everyone every day, especially people that are battling with this virus. We've got a few in our church now. I'm not going to mention their names because some of them are sitting right by you. Come on to church anyway. It'll be all right. So, no, they're not here. But they are logged on, and so let's just pray. And you may not recall names, but we've got a few, and I'm not going to list names because their employer could be online. We're not going to out them. It's not going to be that way. But anyway, pray for all the people that worship with us, everybody that's connected to us, and then other people in your life. We've got quite a few right now that are either experiencing the loss of or right there at the door. And those are tough, very tough times. And honestly, you know, in not in defense of, but in consideration of our flesh, it's really difficult when people are struggling with illness, when we know that He's the God who heals. It's very difficult. I'm going to tell you, that's one of my greatest struggles as a minister, because we pray and we talk about miracles and healing, and then I'm also the one that's got to get up and do the funeral if it doesn't go the way we want. And so it's kind of frustrating. I tell him honestly, I'm just like, sometimes you make it hard to advertise for you because it doesn't seem like in this flesh that your product succeeds. You ever felt that way? If you feel like that's wrong or dishonoring, read the Psalms. The man that was closest to God's heart, after God's heart, said these kind of things a lot. But then he resolved it by saying, but I know I don't understand you, and I know that your love is everlasting, and I know this battle is not that big of a deal. So you always bring back perspective. But see, it's hard to get your faith perspective unless you're honest, right? So it's okay to be honest with God. And so these times are difficult for our faith. All I can tell you is Jesus prayed, and listen closely to this. Peter was going to deny that he knew Jesus Christ. He didn't know it, but his flesh was not yet ready to be totally yielded to Christ when the pressure got on. Jesus knew he was going to deny him, and he even told him, he said, before midnight tonight, you're going to say 3 times that you don't even know me. Because before that, Peter said, I would go to death for you. And Jesus is like, no, you won't. You won't even comment about my name in front of a teenage girl later on. But listen, he didn't say that. He was acted listening, watching, whatever. I don't know what your situation is going to result in. I don't know if a miracle will happen or it won't. But I do know that your faith doesn't need to fail you. So focus on your faith, not the facts of what you're going through. As long as your faith doesn't fail you. Peter went ahead and denied 3 times and cussed the last time. I don't know this man. But Jesus didn't pray that that bad thing wouldn't happen. He just prayed for the man's faith. Does that make sense? So for yourself and for others, pray, don't let my faith fail me now. Faith don't fail me now, right? Amen. So that's all I want to say. You're dismissed. See you later. No. We're going to receive our offering, and along with this, we have adopted, 4 years ago or so, we adopted a public school. A lot of ministries in town do this, and so we just find unique ways to minister to the staff. Mostly, we've been taking care of the staff. We keep their staff lounge fully stocked with coffee, and they love coffee, man, and chocolates and all kind of candy and chips and stuff. So they can go there. When they do go in there, they're just loaded. They got all kind of selections, and Julie and a few others are very disciplined about going and keeping that thing stocked. But we felt like we wanted to do something for the student body, all right? Because sometimes they need to see what's going on for their leadership. And so what we worked up a deal with the Bahama Bucks company here in town, and we're going to be able to, depending on how you give today,
we're going to be able, no, we're going to do it. We've already committed. It's Thursday. We're going to be able to, we're going to have a big allotment of the Bahama Bucks shaved ice with various flavors. And about 1:30, I think it is, on Thursday, we're going to give every kid in that entire school, it's Rush Elementary, every kid's going to get one of those Bahama Bucks products, all right? Especially from Rock City, totally free to them, not us. But we just felt like that was a good way to reach out. The Bahama Bucks Company, they cut the cost, greatly. So it's going to be a real neat time. If you want to, I think we could have people. Can we have a lot of people going? We don't have to have masks. And you don't have to have your vaccination. So, because it's outside. But if you would like to come up, Rush Elementary, look it up. We're going to be out there serving these kids. And I just believe, what we'll do before they get out there and get it, we're going to pray over them. If Paul could pray over a garment and take it to or they could take it to somebody and they would be healed, what about, the Holy Spirit just getting into some shave ice and helping maybe a family environment or moms and dads that are in stress with each other? Y'all believe stuff like that can happen? Don't let your faith fail you, all right? So as you give today, we were going to take a second offering, but I don't think we have to do that kind of stuff. That just wastes time. If you can, just put a little extra in the offering. If you want to wait and you need to do it online after it's over, you can do that. Or if this week you want to help, I think it's like $600. That's pretty good. The whole school and all the staff. That's not bad. That's not a bad deal. So I think we have about $25 in the budget. No, I'm just playing. We're going to cover it. We're not worried about it, but you can help. So if you can do that today, just put a little extra in there. If not, you can do it online or any day this week. But that's the cause that we're about this week, besides the normal overhead, right? Here's a country song. I tell you what, we're just going to play the introduction. And we're going to let this offering take place. And then, because I want you to watch these lyrics real close. It just supports everything that I've been saying. The song is called Outprayed. It's got a great message. Get this. Let this thing sink into your heart. I turned 18 2 short weeks after we won state. Turned in my pads and told my dad I just couldn't wait. I prayed that I could drop out and move out on my own. If I could land that construction job, hey man, I'd be gone. You should have seen the smile on my daddy's face that next spring when he watched me graduate. I got outprayed. God don't always give us what we ask for. It might feel like he looks the other way. Oh, but sometimes we get blessed when he hears someone else. We're saved from ourselves by his grace. Pray. That blue-eyed girl was my whole world. Had to make her mine someday. I told her dad the plans we had, afraid of what he'd say. I bet he prayed for better, and better wasn't me. Oh, but I had faith the Lord could make me the man I had to be. And now he's grandpa in our pew on his favorite day, with a grandson on his knee and a big smile on his face, 'cause he got outprayed. God don't always give us
ask for. It might feel like he looks the other way. Oh, but sometimes we get blessed when he hears someone else. We're saved from ourselves by his grace. Outpray. Oh, God don't always give us what we ask for. It might feel like he looks the other way. Oh, but sometimes we get blessed when he hears someone else, and we're saved from ourselves by his grace. Thank the Lord for his amazing grace. When we get out, pray. Oh, we get out, pray. That's one of those not my will, but thy will be done type of things. And that's very, very important. I want you to be praying for Jesse Lopez. He's had quite a difficult month, really. A very traumatic life experience happened, and even within the boundaries of laws and everything, it was a tough situation. And then this past week, his father passed away, and so I don't know if he's online or not, but Jesse, if you're out there, we're thinking about you. We had a funeral service for his dad yesterday, and I just felt to convey a few things that I shared in that service. Jesse's dad's real name was Jesus. I mean, it's Jesus, but it's when they sent me the obit, it was like Jesus. And I told that crowd yesterday, I said, do y'all know how rare you guys are? I mean, how many people have ever been to Jesus' funeral? I mean, that's a short list. And my message to them was Jesus to me. In other words, what is Jesus saying to me? Now, I was talking about Jesse, but also, what is Jesus saying through the life of a man that we can learn? And so I just wanted to give you a few points that I made there, because it kind of fits right with where I was already going for the message. But this message is called The Call and the Answer. And I want you to think about how you're going to respond to the call and how you are responding to the call of God in your life and on your life. Everybody has been called to something. Now, we've minimized the focus of a calling to whether you preach, teach, or sing in a praise band or something like that. But that is, I'm going to tell you, in the spirit, did you know this stage is not more important real estate than the chair you're sitting in right there? Men and women have prioritized that up like it's a big deal, and everybody feels like they're spectators, and the people on the stage are the real gifted and the real called. Every human being is called by God for something. And I tend to believe that whatever you're called to do, no one can do it like you. You need to think about that. No one can be you. You are made to be an original. And someone said, if you're born to be an original, don't die a copy. And there's too much photocopying going on with people. And we're like clones of others that seem to be more famous or whatever. So 3 dimensions of your life that must be functional for you to live and love to your fullest potential. There are 3 things. The number 1 thing is a purpose. You have to have a purpose in your life. And you can dodge that a long time. You can ignore it a long time, or you can just not know about it for a long time, but the truth of it never goes away. And so we need to be thinking about what is our purpose. Why am I here? Why am I here now? You know, time, tribe, and territory. Why was I born at the time I was born? Because see, the Bible says before I formed you. The word before relates to time. It relates to chronology, meaning that before God authorized your birth, He knew you and He had a plan for you. And so that references time. God, I believe every child, every human being, we call them people before their time. We've had entertainers, songwriters, artists, poets, and we say, man, they were a man before their time. I don't believe that's possible. I think everybody that lives is right on time. And then there's tribe, and that's the family that you were born into. And I believe that was authorized by God, because He says, if you just think about what He told Jeremiah, before I formed you in your mother's womb. He didn't just say before I formed you in some womb that was just happenstance or just, just occurred. He said before I formed you in your mother's womb. That specific tribe. That's the family that you were born to. And there's purpose. Your purpose relates to the time that you were born and that you are living, and it also relates to the tribe or your family. And then the last one is territory, where you live. Now, that probably is the most minimal with some people's lives, because some people can do whatever they're going to do anywhere. But there are also certain people that are where they are for a reason, in a certain town or in a certain business or in a certain experience. I know of people that are going through difficult times physically, and when they go to these high-level care facilities for cancer or whatever, they're getting close, and there's a family unit type of development, and there's encouragement there. I remember hearing, I believe it was Kirk Kaiser, when he would go get treatment when he was fighting cancer. He would go in this general area where a few people were, hooked up to IVs receiving that drug. He would go to each one of them before he got to his place, and he would just greet them. And sometimes there were first timers, and they were nervous. They had never taken that before. They didn't know the side effects that they were going to experience. But he would just go to everyone in there and just encourage them. And maybe that was part of his territory. You know what I mean? So when you're walking around and driving around and doing what you're doing, you need to think, God, is this my territory? Is this just a random trip that I'm making, or is there significance pertaining my tribe and my time? Because we're not all here for very long. And whatever you're going to do, just like Jesus told Judas, whatever you're going to do it hastily. In other words, get on with it. And I would say to all of us pertaining our purpose, we need to get on with it. You're not promised tomorrow. So you got to have a purpose. The second thing you got to consider is the person that you are. First of all, these are dimensions of who we are. You got to know your purpose. And then you got to think about, who are you going to be as a person? Every one of us have the capacity to determine the kind of person that we want to be. A lot of people have excuses, and they say, well, it's just because I was born that way, or this is how my family was, and so this is me. It doesn't have to be you. You can change. It takes, they say, about 21 days. If you ever want to listen to something inspiring, you can log on to a podcast by Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she's got a wonderful dialect, but she's brilliant, and she has actually proven that through thinking, you can actually reroute your brain and your thoughts. She says you can actually change your life by changing the way you think. And she proves it scientifically. But there's a podcast called Cleaning Up the Mental Mess or something like that. And you can catch her, and it's wonderful information. It's Christian-based, but she proves it medically and scientifically that you can actually create new paths in your brain by thinking new thoughts. It's like a new thought is like a backhoe, not a backhoe, but a front end loader, to where when you determine to think a different way and you do it the first day, that front end loader moves forward and it scrapes a new path. Now, a lot of people try it for 2 or 3 days and then they wonder why things aren't different. Well, go get a front end loader and try to clear some land and just go about 10 feet and stop. You don't have a road yet. If you're gonna put a path there, you got to keep going and you got to keep digging and digging and digging and hauling off some dirt. And if you'll keep working, before long, you will have a nice road and you can pave that. And instead of getting your pickup all dirty from caliche. You ever washed your truck and somebody invites you over to their house and you pull up and they got a caliche dry? And just park outside. Uber the rest of the way. Because that stuff flies. Well, you got to get rid of some of the dirt. You got to get rid of some of that dirt. But eventually, so she says, you keep carving new thought lanes in your life, and before long, you're different. So you can change the type of person that you are. They say it takes about 21 days of driving that front end loader, making that new mental path, and then you can actually think differently. It's pretty cool. Changing the person that you are. Because your purpose won't be as fulfilled if you're not the person you need to be. I feel like I'm being strangled by this shirt. I have no idea why it's just pulling down. An angel is like, shut up, pulling me this way. If you're not the person that God wants you to be, you'll never fulfill your purpose entirely. You know, because you got to live the message of your purpose. And so if you're not the person you need to be, in other words, if you don't control your anger, you say things that are hurtful to people, and yet you say God sent you to be an encourager. You're not an encourager if you're always bringing people down. And so you got to think about the person that you are. But you think first about the purpose that you have in your life, and then you come down and say, okay, what kind of person do I need to be to fulfill that purpose? And a lot of people can't do that because they're not humble enough to change who they are. And so then we come up with ideas like, well, if you just don't like it, fine, we don't have to get along. Well, you might have just ruined your purpose with somebody with that attitude. What about looking at your purpose and saying, okay, I believe I'm to be an encourager. Well, I better learn how to smile to people. I better learn how to motivate people. I better learn how to compliment people. Because you can't be an encourager if you never compliment people. So you got to think about purpose and then, okay, now the person that I am. And then the third thing is where everything rests on it, and that is the promise that you have in your life. Every life has got to have a promise. Now, we know the world, the culture will promise you things that they will never deliver on. So we're not talking about the promise of carnality or humanity, because we know that can't happen. I'm talking about the focus on the promise that Jesus Christ gives us. That your purpose and the person that you are is not in vain. That there's meaning to your life. That's not related to purpose, that's related to promise. Because see, I can be focused on my purpose, and my purpose may never reach a level that I really feel fulfilled with. I may always be hungry for more. So I've got to be careful that my faith doesn't rest in my purpose, because I may never be happy with that. And I don't put faith in myself. The Bible says put no confidence in the flesh. Because so even though I'm trying to be the person I'm needing to be, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. So if my faith rests in that, then my faith is going to be up one day and down the next. My faith has got to be in the promise that Jesus gives me about the person I am because of the purpose that I have in my life. So purpose, person, promise. That's pretty easy. Purpose, person, promise. Regarding a promise, that's where your hope comes. When I know the promise of God in my life, then it gives me hope to try to make myself a better person, which can help me fulfill my purpose better. They're all interconnected, but it really starts with promise. It doesn't start with purpose. Too many people are trying to find purpose before they understand promise. The promise is the reason for the purpose. And then the purpose is the reason that you change the person that you are. All right? PPP. Everybody got their PPP, right? Payroll protection plan. Hey, this is your purpose protection plan. If you'll get into the promise that you have on your life, that's why Paul said, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. What's he saying there? I understand I'm crying. I understand it. But I know I've got a promise that by tomorrow, this weeping is going to stop. Now, sometimes tomorrows take a while to get here, but that's the promise. Job said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Now, we're not talking about Santa's sleigh. We're talking about slaying with a sword or a gun. I mean, this is a slain person. Though he kills me, yet will I trust him. Why? Because he had hope in a promise that he felt God had put on his life. So if you feel hopelessness dwelling in your life, don't kill yourself about purpose and the person that you are. First, go to the promise and get reestablished there. And then say, okay. And that's where Paul was like, you know what? For me to live is Christ, but if I die, it's gain. It's not even a loss. It's actually a win. I don't understand it, but that's how it is. So you have to have that thing in your life, that cause or that performance, that's your purpose. You got to have that in your life so when times get hard, you can go back to that and say, okay, this was a bad situation, but I know I'm here for a reason. And so I'm not going to let the scorecard of today overshadow my whole season. And then that encourages you to be the person that you want to be. If you want to be an athlete, purpose, then you're going to have to look at the person that you are. And if you have, way too much fatty foods and not enough workout and not enough of at some point you're not being the person that you should be because of the purpose that you're trying to attain. So purpose, actually you get the promise in your life and then you go back and say, okay, how am I going to live out that promise? And then you look at the person that you are. But you got to have that thing that you can go to when times are tough and the devil's saying you don't have any value, and the devil may not say it directly, but your spouse could say it, your kids could say it to you, parents can say it to you, sometimes bosses can say it to you, friends sometimes can infer that you're not enough. When you feel that, you got to go back to your purpose that's based on a promise, and then it says, okay, I can deal with this, all right? There's a story about, let me just talk about promise. They say you can't live more than about 5 minutes without some kind of hope. Now, we have people say, I've just been living hopeless for the last year. Not really hopeless. You can go a long time without food, a long time without food. You can go a lot longer than you think without water. A lot of people don't think they can go as long without food as they do water. Like, if I don't eat in 40 minutes, I'm going to murder somebody. They call that hangry, right? I'm getting hangry. That's hungry to the point of anger. But you can actually go a long time without food. And you can go a long time without water, not near as long as you can go without food. But they say you can't live 5 minutes without hope. Real hope. Some kind of strand that this is not going to be this way forever. And promise is where we get our hope. It's not purpose and it's not the person that we are, all right? So there's a story in the Bible about one of King Saul's son Jonathan's heirs. His name was Mephibosheth. You've heard us talk about this guy. But he was about 5 years old when King Saul and Jonathan got killed, and the family had been distorted through Saul's anger and jealousy toward David. See, once David killed Goliath, King Saul hated David. And the Bible indicates it because when David killed that giant that all of the army was afraid to go confront. And even King Saul wouldn't go out there either. And David shows up, about a 17-year-old kid, young man, and just kind of wild and, evidently, because when his brothers saw that he was at the battlefield, they were like, you just came to see the blood. You just came to see the gore. So he must have been kind of an out there guy. And so Saul wouldn't go. The army wouldn't go. And David says, I'll go. I'll go fight that giant. Now, this is a very, very tall man. Some people say 11 feet. Some people say 13 feet. His armor weighed hundreds of pounds. And he's out there yakking about the people of God and of God himself. And so David says, I'm going to go out there and fight him. And so he goes out there, you know the story, slings a rock, knocks the man down, and then goes over and takes his Goliath sword out of his sheath and chops his head off with his own sword. And he told him he was going to do that. See, he only had a rock to throw at this man, but he said, today I'm going to take your head off. In other words, David already had a vision. He had a purpose because he had a promise that God couldn't be defeated. And so he was willing to change the person that he was from being a shepherd to being a giant slayer in one day. Don't tell me you can't change. So when he's only got a rock, he says, I'm going to take your head off. And I think David knew exactly what he was going to do. I think when he walked out there and he saw that big sword in that sheath, he was like, I know what I'm going to do now. He just didn't say, I'm going to throw rocks at you all day till you die. He walked out there and he says, this is step one, but that's next. That's confidence. That's a man that has a promise. So some time passes, of course, and Saul hated David. Because see, after David killed that giant, these people of Israel started singing these songs. They started, I'm making a lot of noise here today. My back is popping, I guess, a lot. Never does that stuff till today. What's going on? It's always something. Okay, maybe that's the angel saying, be still. So I'm going to just be still. You know what I read the other day? I read that when you're talking to Americans nowadays, the louder you get, the less control of the crowd you have. And they said it's the less attention they pay to you. I was like, that's the problem. So I'm just going to learn just to talk so quiet. So I can't even be still. The people started singing this song, and this is what made Saul jealous. They said, Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his 10,000s. Now, when you're the king and people start lauding and praising you higher, praising someone else higher than you, that's worthy of death. I mean, they would kill people for that. They wanted to be top. They wanted to be top shelf. They wanted to be the elite. And so from that day on, Saul got really jealous of David, tried to kill him a couple of times, even when he was working for him. So Saul would get home or get in the castle, the back chambers, and he would talk about his hatred for David. So evidently all of his family started to hear about this. And so fast forward, Jonathan and Saul die the same day in battle, and the word gets back to the children of God's place in Israel, and they're saying Saul and Jonathan are dead, and the family got worried what David was going to do to them. So they packed up and got out of there. Well, one of the nurse assistants or whatever grabbed this little 5-year-old boy named Mephibosheth and was hauling him out of the house. And she fell, she tripped over the stoop of the door, and she dropped this little boy, and it shattered his ankle, and he was crippled for the rest of his life. And so years pass. He's in a place called Lo-debar, which actually, the name Lo-debar means a place of abundance, a good place, but those good times had passed, and now Lo-debar was a very fruitless, they didn't plant any crops there. They had to get food from other places. It was a very depressed type of city or town. And so this is where they put Mephibosheth to live. And so David becomes king, and at some point he's reading some history, and he's thinking about Jonathan, because remember he made a covenant with Jonathan, Saul's son. They made the cut, shared the blood and the promise together, and the promise was that I will take care of yours forever. If anything happens to you, I'm taking care of yours, because we're in covenant. One of my best friends lost a 26-year employee this week to COVID virus. And his family lives in company-owned houses in these different regions where they do work. And at the funeral, at the graveside, this widow comes up to this company owner and says, I don't know what I'm going to do about living in the house. And my friend said, what are you talking about? She said, well, I mean, we lived in that house because of my husband working for you. And my friend said, number one, we're not going to talk about that out here. But he said, what you need to know is you can stay in that house as long as you want. He said, even years, until something works out for you. That's the honor that we had as boss and worker and friend, 26 years. Well, Jonathan and David had that kind of relationship. I'm going to take care of it. And my friend told this guy up in the hospital, the day that he died, shared some things, and he got down and whispered to him, and he said, hey, don't worry about your wife and kids. I will make sure they're fine. That's a good thing to say to somebody. And that's kind of the covenant language that Jonathan and David shared. And so David is thinking, Jonathan's been dead years, Saul's been gone a long time, David's been king a long time, and he's thinking about the past, and he calls one of his servants and he says, hey, is there anybody that's alive from the household of Saul or of Jonathan? And so the guy checked it out, and they said, yeah, Jonathan's son, Mephibosheth, is in this little village called Lo-debar. And David said, I want you to go get him. Go get him and bring him to the palace. He's going to stay with me, and he's going to dine at my table. So they go and they get this guy, and understand, listen, his injury occurred because of the fear and hatred toward David. He's been limping, listen, he's been limping on that issue a long time. Sound familiar? And now these people come in here, these servants come in of the king, who you can't refuse, and they're saying, King David wants you brought in to the city of David. And can you imagine what this guy who's been limping on an issue pertaining David, he was 37 at this time, I think. That's a long time to limp. 32 years, I would say that's pretty painful and pretty enduring, ongoing issue. And I'm sure that in his mind he was thinking, he wants to wipe me out. He's probably going to have me killed just to get back, at my grandfather. And so they bring him in, and, they didn't have, I'm sure they had some type of mobility for handicapped people, but, they say that they had blocks and stuff that they would put on their feet just to keep them balanced or whatever. And so that was a noisy situation. We can imagine the first meal when Mephibosheth arrived, the first time he comes in there, because there was many people sitting at the king's table. And can you imagine when this guy is brought in, what everybody was thinking? And can you imagine what Mephibosheth was thinking? He's probably thinking, oh, this is my last meal. This is the last supper before he makes sport of me. Kings did that in those days. And he had been told some bad things about David. But at some point, he understood that David had him there on covenant, not revenge. He actually had brought him there to show him love that he had extended to his father Jonathan and the promise that they had made. And maybe just in the course of the meal, he might still be wondering why he's there. You know, we sing that song, you know, I'm thinking, carried to the table. You listen to the lyrics of that song, and that's Mephibosheth. Carried to the table, seated where I don't belong, carried to the table, swept away by his love. And I don't see my brokenness anymore when I'm sitting at the table of the Lord. That's why we worship first off when we come together, y'all. Y'all got to understand that's the reason. Because if you can't get rid of the pain that you're carrying, you'll never be able to focus on the promise. And worship should be that place that you really can just get rid of the pain. And the clouds can all dissipate and you can see what you're really here for because of the promise of God that's on your life. And so maybe David's at the head table and Mephibosheth is one or two places down from him. And he might be still wondering, why am I here? What's this man going to do to me? But maybe David reached for something like a bowl of something or his glass of wine. And then Mephibosheth saw that scar. And he might have remembered, oh yeah, my dad and this man were in covenant. What is that? They knew what it was. Because that was a procedure. When a man cut covenant with another man, they didn't just, cut themselves here, just make the little pinprick or something. There was a design to it. And that's why when you walked in the community and you saw a man's wrist and you saw that he had a mark there, you had to understand, if I pick a fight with this guy, it's not just him. Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? When you're in covenant with somebody and the devil comes against you, you ought to just raise your fist up, so to speak, and say, hey, you're not fighting just me. I'm in covenant with somebody else, and you don't know who they are. Greater is he that's in us, you know what I'm saying, than he that's in the world. And isn't it unique that we've been infused with the blood of Christ? That's covenant. See, when I'm willing to cut my flesh, humble myself, die to myself, then he pours his blood into me, and I'm as in covenant with him as Jonathan was with David. I thought about, people that have died when they see Jesus and he meets them, and hopefully he does for us what he did for everybody of those three servants, of the two servants. He said, well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the presence of the Lord. Can you imagine? And I thought about this and even mentioned it with Jesse, because Jesus met Jesus the other day in heaven. You ever seen two Jesuses meet? That's Jesse. I'm Jesus. But can you imagine if it's because, see, Jesus' physical body is in heaven. Our spirits just go, but his physical body is there. And you know why I think that's true? Because when we get there, I think it's going to be unique that we see the prints where those nails were. And we can see the one that did what he did for us. That's pretty cool. And so Mephibosheth sees that scar and he says, man, I'm not going to worry about this. I'm in covenant. So if you will turn to 1 Samuel, the 3rd chapter. I'm just going to read a few verses. Now, before we read this, I want to tell you, we're doing the book of John. We're studying the book of John at our home groups on Wednesday nights. And you really need to be a part of it. It's very educational. It's very social, a lot of fun. And we're just working through verse after verse of the book of John. We'll be in chapter 3 this coming Wednesday. I noticed something that I had not noticed regarding the disciples in chapter 1 of John. Or it might have been chapter 2. Did you know not every disciple was personally called by Christ? Did y'all know that? I didn't. I mean, we read about when he goes to the tax collector's booth where Matthew is, and he says, follow me. And Matthew got up and left everything. And we read where he did out there on the water after they had related for a while. Peter and Jesus had known each other. They had been interacting. And at some point, Peter is fishing. He can't catch any fish. And so Jesus said, cast your nets on the other side, catch a load. And they did. And Peter was amazed by that. And that's when Jesus said, well, if you'll come follow me, I will make you fishers of men. In other words, the way you caught all these fish, the same goes, you're going to be recruiting people for me. So we do have that. But in I think it's chapter 1 or 2, one guy just went to his brother and said, hey, we found the Messiah. And that guy left everything he had and went and followed. In other words, they all didn't have this epiphany of Jesus showing up and saying, follow me. There were quite a few of them that followed him without a direct invitation. They heard it by word of mouth. Just like you come here on Sunday or you log in on Sunday and you just hear word of mouth of another human being. But I'm saying come follow Jesus. And if you will come follow him, he'll use you just like he used the disciples back then. And then I learned something else in the book of John. The Bible says that he got his disciples together and then chose 12. I had not seen that either. I thought he went 12, because everybody says, well, there was 12 foundation stones, in Israel, and so that's why he picked 12. And that might be true. But he didn't go to 12 addresses or 12 men's workplace and say, would you come follow me? A lot of people were following him. He gathered all of his disciples together, and then he just chose 12 to do that, more. He just chose 12 men. What does that tell us? Every one of us are disciples. We are all disciples. Very unique. And so, because the reason I'm saying that is there's a lot of times when it comes to spirituality, we think, well, since I don't have that experience that, this guy had, I'm probably not called to do the same special work. Because we get this false narrative that everybody God used had this incredible calling. And it's not that way. Even John the Baptist, when push came to shove, he questioned whether Jesus was the real deal. I think we do that because we give ourselves a pass on having to answer our call. Well, I don't have that great story. When I was a young teenager with my dad, we had these ministers come by, and there was one guy that came by and served time. He had been in prison for crime. I think he had murdered somebody, drug trafficking. I mean, he was just a rebel. And everybody, I was looking around, I was probably 15 or 16. I'm looking around the room, and everybody's like, and this guy's up there, and he's just got swagger, and he's talking about all the bad stuff he did before God saved him. And you know what I thought? I was like, my testimony kind of sucks. I really need to get out there and do some stuff and amp this story up a little bit. I'm like Pee Wee Herman over here. Well, I just grew up in church. My dad, one time we were talking about that, and he said, let me tell you, it's a much better testimony to never have fallen and been so weak to fall for those kind of temptations than to have fallen and let the devil whip your butt for 20 years and then God have to pull you out of the depths of hell. And I was like, all right, I don't feel like Pee Wee anymore. But sometimes in our flesh, we kind of make qualifications. Well, but it's too late for me. I can't do that. These people didn't have these incredible chill bump experiences. There's just a brother comes up and disciples. Now, I'm telling you that because this calling was pretty intense. 1 Samuel, the 3rd chapter. But not all of the callings of people that are greatly used for God and by God are this emphatic. Verse 1, meanwhile, the boy Samuel, the boy about 12, served the Lord by assisting Eli. Eli was just the presiding priest at the time. Now in those days, messages from the Lord were very rare and visions were quite uncommon. There wasn't a lot of word of God. There wasn't a lot of impressions. There wasn't a lot of people saying, I heard from God last night. One night, Eli, who was almost blind by now, had gone to bed. The lamp of God had not gone out, and Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle near the ark of God. And suddenly the Lord called out, Samuel. And Samuel said, yes. What is it? Well, he got up and he ran to the most familiar source. He went to the priest. He went to Eli. And he said, here I am. Did you call me? And Eli said, no, I didn't call you. Go back to bed. You're dreaming. So the Lord called out, verse 6, called out again, Samuel. And again, Samuel got up and went to Eli. Here I am. Why are you here? Well, you called me. No. Samuel did not know the Lord because he never had a message from the Lord before. Very interesting. Listen. Samuel did not yet know the Lord because he had never had a message from the Lord before. But if you go back to verse 1, it says, the boy Samuel served the Lord under leadership of Eli. That's a conviction to me. I just want God to show himself, speak to me, be real to me. And this little boy was serving a God who the Bible says he didn't even know. That's amazing. So the Lord called a third time, and once more Samuel got up and went to Eli. And he said, here I am. Did you call me? Then Eli realized it was the Lord who was calling the boy. So he said to Samuel, you go down, you go lie down, and if he happens to speak again, if you're lucky and he's pushing it this time for you and it's not over for you, because Eli knew there was something that had deceased with him. If he calls again, speak this and say, your servant is listening. So Samuel went back to bed. And the Lord came and called as before, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel replied, speak, your servant is listening. And then God spoke to Samuel in the next few verses and basically told Samuel everything he was about to do, basically removing Eli as a priest, and nobody in his family would live very long unless they lived shamefully. And that there was going to be a change in his leadership of that country, of that the nation of God, the people of God. The next morning, Samuel got up and he wasn't going to mention it to Eli. He was like Dylan, I don't know if I want to mess this up. But Eli came and he said, what did God say? And Samuel had to be honest and told him, your time's done. Your family's done. And the reason was God had seen the behavior of Eli's sons, and God sent an angel to Eli to tell him to fix that situation. And so you got to be careful with the person that you are. But Samuel, through this call, got very specific instructions from God about how the future was going to go. Peter got purpose, the person that he was supposed to be, and the promise in the one phrase that says, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. Follow me represents the purpose. What's my purpose in life? To follow Christ. The person I'm supposed to be comes in the second statement, and I will make you. I'm going to change how you are, but you're going to have to go work with me. But I'm going to deal with the person that you are. And then he says, I'm going to make you fishers of men. In other words, the effect that you're going to have on people is going to be as amazing as the catch that you just caught. In other words,